Yeah, I mean, definitely everyone remembers kind of what happened with the last stock split. So I think a lot of people are kind of looking forward with anticipation. I don't know if necessarily you're going to get that kind of movement. That was, you know, clearly a confluence of different factors that led to Tesla just running up an insane amount after their last stock split. But um, I mean, I was buying some shares as Tesla was going down. I had actually sold around maybe 25% of my stake in Tesla at like around 10.90 or something like that. I think it was like first the market crashed, then it went back up again, and it was kind of like, sometimes you just get that feeling like, okay, there's a lot of bad things happening. There's the Shanghai shutdowns. So it was actually kind of nice, selling a little bit at like 10.98. And then as Tesla went down, you know, 1,000, 900, 800, even down to 600, maybe even a little bit below the 600 line at one point, if I remember correctly, or maybe not. I was just buying and I felt kind of stupid. Like, okay, Tesla just keeps going down more and more, and I keep buying more. But you look at all those shares, and with the stock now at 900 and looks like it's going to head higher after the shareholder meeting, it's looking like a pretty good move. I mean, I was just looking at a trade that I made for um to get some of those shares back that I had sold, where I placed an order in May for around $600, and now that those same shares are trading above $900. So just within a couple of months, 50% return on that trade. And I mean, this is why Tesla's so fun for both the bulls and the bears. There's just so much volatility. You can really make money. Um, if you're a bull or a bear, if you can understand the company and what's happening.
Perfect. I want to talk for a minute about the Berlin factory. Tesla opened its German factory in March 2022, which I believe was supposed to cause a large increase in European sales and market share for Q2. Uh, but then their European sales and market share kind of fell in half, or were cut in half in Q2 as they like they had closed almost the European factory. I think we talked a little bit about this. So just a couple numbers. Their European EV
Yeah,
market share was 20% in 2019, but it's down below 5%. And the European market share, I believe this is counting only BEVs, excluding PHEVs.
right.
They fell from 18% to 8% in Q2 2022. That's one of the things that I think the Bears have been kind of pulling out a little bit. Can you kind of speak to your perspective on that?
Yeah, definitely. The Bears always kind of come up with these arguments which don't actually make that much sense when you look a little bit deeper into them. Tesla just has this brand new factory in Berlin, which is just starting to ramp up and get into production. It's not really ramped yet. So the last we heard, they were making about 1,000. They did 1,000 cars a week. So that doesn't even mean that they're doing 12,000 a quarter. It means they had one month where they did 1,000. I mean, sorry, one week where they did 1,000. And so, you really look at, okay, 12, 1,000 a week, that's really 52,000 a year. And, Tesla did a million units last year. They're going to do closer to 1.5 million this year. So you're really looking at, by volume, a very small percentage of Tesla's units. It's not really going to impact them in major markets. What really impacted them in the European market was the Shanghai shutdown. Because right now, Shanghai is their current export hub. They've got about 750,000 units of installed capacity there. And all of the cars made in the US are sold in the US and other places. The Shanghai cars that are made in China are exported to Europe, to Australia and New Zealand, where they actually command a much higher average selling price than what you're going to see when you sell them in China. Now, obviously, with China, when you ship those cars out, you have to really ship them out in the first month, and then they get to Europe at the last month. So the shutdown really kind of impacted their sales numbers for Q2 more so than, let's say, Volkswagen, who's got a plant right there in Germany. So I think, Q2 is really kind of an anomaly quarter. As Berlin ramps, I think you're going to see some pretty impressive numbers. I mean, Tesla's market share in Europe of the auto market has been continuously increasing. And when you see this factory come online, oh my God, it's going to be unbelievable. Like Volkswagen is shitting their pants over this. Okay. They're literally shitting their pants. They said, okay, Tesla can make a factory, I mean, sorry, make a car in this factory, this new factory in 10 hours. Building that same type of EV that's not as good, it takes us 30 hours. So Volkswagen's actually going and they're building a brand new Wolfsburg factory. Like they're really trying to respond to this. They're worried. And to make the argument that, oh, well, they built Berlin, but the market share went down. That's kind of a dishonest argument because number one, Berlin hasn't ramped yet. It's really Shanghai that's the primary supplier of cars to China. And of course, we all know about the lockdowns and the area that's going to be most affected in terms of sales by those lockdowns is Europe because of the shipping delays associated with getting the cars from China to Europe. So I would caution bears against getting too excited. Really, when you look at Q4, Q3, I think people are going to be shocked at how quickly these factories ramp up and how strong their financial performance is relative to the previous factories.
Okay, perfect. I do see a request, and I'm going to bring people up. We're going to take requests and questions. We took a bunch of questions last time. I think we'll probably aim to take them a little bit towards the second half of this, maybe like 5, 10 minutes. Uh, I did see, lately, I'm just curious, if we can kind of pop it back to Elon for a minute. Elon's been a little bit quieter. I mean, he's mostly just been tweeting, memes and that he hearts doges and things along those lines, but it's mostly just in kind of like memes and different pieces. Do you think he's trying to keep a bit of a low profile?
Well, I mean, it's hard to really keep a low profile when you're him. He's the richest guy in the world. He's the most famous guy in the world. But I mean, to me, I think people kind of focus on Elon too much in a sense. I mean, you can understand why. He's constantly generating headlines, just tweeting all this crazy shit, right? Some people love him, some people hate him. But really, to me, forget about Elon for a second, okay? Elon is a human. One day he's going to go to Mars or die or something like that. And Tesla's going to continue, and the EV revolution is going to continue. And really, what you have with Tesla, I think, is one of the most insane success stories and economic transition stories I've ever seen. So, you know, while people are really focused on Elon and what he tweeted, who he banged or allegedly banged, all that stuff, there's some really amazing things happening at Tesla that, frankly, I think people aren't paying enough attention to.
Okay, got it. By the way, speaking to shorts, there was an article published after the earnings day last week saying that shorts lost $1 billion in early trading last Thursday, and that number doubled to $2 billion loss as the rally extended throughout the day. So, good amount of money was kind of left out there. There were some interesting points about uh, the shorts against Tesla, the short interest, different pieces like that. I was just kind of rolling through it. Um, okay,
Yeah.
Giovanni, I brought. Yeah, yeah, Omar.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when are these guys going to learn, right? I mean, since I started really following this company and got my Model 3, there have been people betting against Tesla. They said it was valued at 30 billion. It was overvalued. At 60 billion, they said it's even more overvalued. And at a trillion, they still haven't realized that there's a problem with their thesis. And, it's kind of funny. Some people are just really adamant about it. They keep shorting the company, and honestly, we as bulls thank them because they've paid for a lot of stuff with their losses over the years.
Okay, I have a different question, and then Jay, I'll go to you. What's going on with what's going on outside of Tesla? I'm just always so curious because this is like a massive corporation, and Elon's always tweeting and posting about Tesla. But there's also SpaceX, there's also the Boring Company, there's also all these other pieces. What else is going on in a daily life? How's that being balanced? Where do you see the focus being split up?
Yeah, I mean, It's kind of insane that he manages it somehow, but I guess he does. I mean, SpaceX is working on their Starship rocket. This is a fully reusable spaceship. Nobody's ever made something like this before, where you just take the spaceship, you go out into space, you land back on Earth or on the moon or something. I mean, NASA has awarded a contract for this rocket to land on the moon. It's the lunar lander that's going to put the first woman on the moon and bring Americans back to the moon for the first time in decades. Um, the Boring Company's doing these massive projects like under Vegas, they're digging a tunnel system. Neuralink is having monkeys play ping pong with their mind and stuff like that. I mean, I'm not really sure how he manages it, but somehow he does. Clearly, he's really good at kind of setting a vision on the high level and delegating. But that's why I kind of laugh when people say, "Oh, well, is this Twitter thing going to be a distraction for Elon?" And I mean, of course, you would think for any sane person it would be a distraction, but really, if anything's going to distract him, I think it'd probably be the spaceship or something. Um, so, I mean, who knows how he pulls it off, but he's got all five of these companies running, and they all seem to be executing fairly well.
Okay. Interesting question because it's a little bit off topic, but I did see you interacted with it. Any thoughts on what just happened today with Michael Saylor?
Well, I mean, I think it's obvious. The guy took out a ton of debt to buy Bitcoin, right? And that didn't turn out to be such a good idea. It was actually pretty reckless, and I think a lot of people called it out at the time. I mean, does anyone know what MicroStrategy even does? I don't. He's just the guy who just talks about buying Bitcoin all the time, right? And I mean, maybe it could be helpful to MicroStrategy to have an actual CEO who's working on the business, whatever it is, full time, rather than really, just going and talking about Bitcoin. I mean, I think the stock has really become sort of a proxy for Bitcoin in many ways, much more than it actually represents, say, the earnings potential of the company or anything like that.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I just thought that was something that was pretty interesting there. All right. Jay Money, you requested to come up. Did you have a question for Omar?
Oh yeah, yeah. What's up, Wolf? What's up? Thank you, Bullish. Appreciate you guys. Yeah, just quick question. I kind of same thing, kind of what Bullish was saying. Whole is that how do you feel about like things going like I love Tesla and everything. I've been loving Tesla since they came out, but like I mean, I'm starting to see things about SpaceX and this new Lightyear car, like the fully solar powered car. But then I'm seeing now the Cybertruck has a solar power option now. So how do you feel about like competition as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great. Like, I mean, this is just a dream come true. The number of EVs you see and the number of great EVs and the number of companies that have come around, some dragging their feet, some more enthusiastic and said, okay, the future for us is all EVs. Okay, our Cadillac line is going to be all electric. You know, uh, our high-end Porsche line is going to be all electric. And that's because it's better and that's what people want. I mean, I think it's stunning. Like we were really telling people for a long time, like, this is going to happen, but it's still surprising to see it happen and so fast. And I mean, I could talk for a long time about how these changes have shaken up the auto industry, electrification, digitization, automation. Um, these are really, throwing a wrench in the works of these businesses that have really been operating much the same way for 100 years. Um, and it's a good thing. We're in this kind of David and Goliath phase, right? Oil is the Goliath. Everybody is driving these gas cars. There's people who make their living in the oil and gas industry. There's political power. It's the Goliath. It's so powerful. It seems so impossible to unseat. But then you've got electric, and to some extent, people love to pit different EVs against each other. Like, okay, do you want the Tesla or the Ford or the Hyundai, right? And of course, there's competition. People are only going to buy one car at the end of the day, but largely everyone is united against really gas cars. And if Volkswagen goes and they build out a bunch of EV chargers, well, guess what? That's going to be helpful for Teslas too. Teslas will be able to use them. And Tesla's now moving to actually open up their supercharger charging network to all electric vehicles, not just Teslas. This has been one of their biggest competitive advantages, one of their biggest moats. You would never see a business give up something like this, but they're going to open it up partly to get access to public funds, but partly because it's just going to be a game changer for the EV industry to have that many chargers open and to accelerate the build out to that level. So really at this stage, fossil fuels are the enemy. To some extent, all EVs are kind of working together. This market is just growing so fast that you can lose market share of the EV market and grow your unit volume pretty considerably. It's a rising tide that can lift a lot of boats, I think. And yeah, that's really kind of going to be a huge growth story for all electric players. It's not really, there isn't really an EV market in my view. I'd look at the share of the broader auto market. And if you look at things that way, EVs just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger as a share of the overall market. And I think they'll actually eventually become bigger than the auto market. I mean, imagine an economy, how everyone's always talking about like conserving energy, all the negative effects of using energy. Imagine an economy where we could use all the energy we wanted, and there were very few or little negative externalities associated with that. No guilt. You can grow as much as you want, use as much energy as you want, and energy is cheap and plentiful and reliable. That's really kind of what we're working towards, and it's really a structural improvement for the entire global economy.
Can we speak about the subpoenas for a second and just kind of what's going on there?
Yeah, you mean with Twitter, so being
Yep.
Mark Andreessen and all those people?
Yep.
Yeah, well, they're, it's kind of funny. Elon's been kind of tweeting lately like he wants to buy Twitter. So I don't know if his lawyers talked to him and said, "Hey, look, you're probably going to have to buy Twitter." Or if, maybe they're in some kind of settlement negotiations. But, they're basically trying to negotiate with each other at the end of the day. So they're going to come to an agreement um, that's either going to end with Elon buying Twitter or not buying Twitter and paying them some type of fee. Uh, but I wouldn't be surprised if they just ended up settling. And this is really kind of part of the negotiations, right? So they're subpoenaing some of his friends that he might have talked about with the deal, trying to figure out his intentions, that sort of stuff. Maybe figure out if he said, well, this bot thing isn't really, you know, that much of an issue, but I need to come up with, you know, I need to come up with something to get out of this deal because we overpaid. If they could get him saying something like that through a subpoena, then that would be a smoking gun. That would give them a lot of leverage. And ultimately, it's kind of like a negotiation that's playing out in court. Um, they're kind of, you know, both trying to put all their cards on the table. Elon's filed a countersuit basically just to try and get the outcome of this deal on price or other terms more favorable to one side or the other. So, just typical legal tactics.
Okay, got it. Eric, did you have a question about Tesla or Elon for Omar?
I wanted to, because I thought he was completely out of the situation, and I think that like we've seen this behavior repeated so many times that I was just curious of how this is any different from any other time that he posts something to trend, and then once trending, diverting that or redirecting that traffic to a call to action or something else that is for personal gain and benefit, and in exchange saving a shitload of money on an ad spend or digital ad spend on a platform that is crushing ad spenders and businesses with the algorithm. Do you do you have any thoughts on that being anything different? Because Kanye, Elon, Trump, they all do exactly the same social pattern and have for the last 15 years.
I'm not sure I understand the question. Could you rephrase it?
How how serious is the chance that even regardless of what the outcome is, that he would actually become the seat or the owner or uh, gain access to Twitter on that capacity? Because I think just looking at social posts of the past of doing exactly what I just said in terms of
Right, yeah, I think I understand. So,
platform
I
relation.
mean, Twitter is trying to force him to buy the company. There's a lawsuit, and
Yeah,
they're trying to force him to close the deal. And he's trying to get out of the deal. Really, he wants to buy it at a lower price or not at all. So, what are the chances? I think, you know, shit, it's probably more than 50%, honestly. I don't know. Maybe around 50-50. I mean, I'm not a legal expert, but it sounds like he kind of wants to buy Twitter. And it's kind of sounds like Twitter wants to force him to buy it. So, really, at this point, they're just kind of negotiating the terms of that deal in a very public way, trying to exact leverage. I mean, you don't become the richest guy in the world by not trying to get the best deal for yourself as possible on these things. And Elon's kind of crazy, but I guess we'll judge it by the results. If it ends up with him, really getting fucked over, then we can conclude, okay, that was maybe not one of his best ideas. And if it ends with him getting Twitter at a lower price, then wow, like what a crazy story. I think a lot of people, it's kind of just like, you can do that. You can just go and say, I want to buy this company and try and arrange financing, and then it's yours. So, I don't think anyone really knows. And that's part of the reason why people like talking about it so much is we can just speculate endlessly. And who knows how this whole saga is going to end. It'll probably be something crazier than any of us can imagine.
yeah. I mean, I think he should be penalized for a pump fake in the same way as you would at a poker table where, you have to either go all in or fold, right? And that's essentially what you saw. And as a renegotiation tactic, I can see the legitimacy in that end. I think it's funny that it all comes full circle since PayPal and Square are together, and that's also where he started. And PayPal and Square are behind Twitter's payment processing, so it's just interesting full circle and potentially conflict of interest, but that's beyond me.
Okay, got it. Awesome. Thanks, Eric. Yeah, open invite as well to the rest of the audience. If you do have a specific question or you want to touch on these topics, definitely pop up and hop on to the up here and we can chat. One question I have, Omar, I don't know if you've seen anything around this. Following up, there was a couple months back, maybe like a month back, Elon sent out that email about, everyone's got to return to the office. It's 40 hours a week in the office, this, that, and that, right? Especially if you're higher up. Was there ever any follow up to that? Was there ever any layoffs? Did people just return to the office? Has there been any shift within the company?
Um, well, I think that I haven't heard too much about it. Most employees wouldn't want to talk about this stuff. I did kind of hear internally from some people that some teams like the autopilot team or some teams were kind of being given more leeway than others, but I mean, I think his position's pretty clear, and this is a pretty common divide you see where usually company owners or executives, they want people to be in the office, and the people actually doing the work, the frontline workers, writing the code or doing whatever task they have to do, they want more flexibility. So it really is part of, I think, kind of a larger story about the future of work that's developing. Um, but he's made his position pretty clear. Tesla is a place where there's physical work, and he wants people to be there as much as possible. I don't think they're really trying to be like inflexible or something if you're a developer or something like that, but they do want to encourage people to be in the office, whether it's Texas or Fremont or China or Germany. And that's the kind of company they're going to continue to be, one where the kind of people who want to just phone it in don't want to go work. I mean, this is a company where you have to work really hard, make sacrifices really, in the name of trying to make progress on some of the most pressing and difficult challenges that we face. So, um, if you want to work from home, then Tesla probably isn't the company for you. But I don't think they're also I don't think they're trying to be unnecessarily harsh on their employees. There's still flexibility, and if you're a really high performer and need to work from home, they are making exceptions on a specific basis.
Okay, got it. I see Shiva. You came up. You've got a question.
Yeah, just I work in tech as an engineer, and it's I don't think there's anything really specific to Tesla. I think the whole like broader tech ecosystem is receiving a little bit of pressure. Like, oh, they're trying to get making sure their entire workforce is vaccinated for some corporations, and like whoever's not vaccinated and can't have an accommodation, they're able to lay off, and whoever like they're trying to introduce like hybrid workforces. But if you're a high performer, you can stay working remotely. Like I know I'm for sure would never go back to the office. So I think it's like the broader tech. It's doing the exact same thing as what Elon's prescribing. That's been my experience.
Any
Yeah, I
thoughts,
mean,
Omar? Yeah.
different sectors these days do tend to be kind of trading together, and the market really does seem to be more affected by the macroeconomic situation than necessarily anything specific happening to these companies. So you saw it in like social media and oil and gas. A lot of these companies, they just trade together. It's really interesting. The news about some of these individual visual companies almost doesn't matter.
Okay, real quick. Of course, if you're enjoying this, make sure that you're following Omar. Elon does regularly interact with him, and so he's a pretty good shot to be following, especially because what I've noticed is I'm sure many of us have notifications on for Elon, and then you only get notified of those comments if you're following the person that he comments on. So I make sure I'm following Omar and Billy and Greg and all the good ones so that I get all the comments notified right to me so that I can go be a good old engagement boy. With that being said, speaking of engagement, if you're enjoying the space, definitely be following Omar, and then also check out this Bullish Rippers account. So some of you may be familiar with my voice. I've been speaking for about 7 hours today so far. I run the Wolf account pretty much full time. However, a couple times a week, I hop onto the Bullish Rippers account and run some spaces on here. Stock market news, so you see if you're co-hosting. He does all the tweets from this account, so we're kind of dynamic duoing it. So sometimes even while I'm talking, you'll see tweets going out. So if you enjoy the stuff that you get on the Wolf account or the Stock Market News account, this is kind of like a little best of both worlds, and you could check us out on Bullish Rippers. All right, we got a couple other people that hopped up, but real quick, Evan, I do want to pop to you for a second, see if you have any questions you want to throw in there or anything else you want to say on Rippers.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm a part of Ripper, so very biased, but I think it's a fantastic follow. I did put out the good question asked by Omar, kind of throwing out there, does anyone know what MicroStrategy does besides just Bitcoin as an answer? So we'll see how the replies are on that. But yeah, check out Bullish Rippers. Omar, though, I do want to ask you, I know we have the annual shareholder meeting Thursday, so that's just 2 days away. I saw Sawyer tweet out the questions. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at that or kind of maybe any insights to what's going to happen at that meeting and maybe how you felt about some of those questions.
Yeah, well, I mean, the shareholder meeting's always great. You're going to see Elon take the stage and just give an overview of the whole company, right? Like what's really going on. And I mean, there's a lot of changes that have been happening at the company. So it's definitely going to be an interesting update. It's obviously also a chance for shareholders to ask questions and get a response. So I haven't looked at the questions, but there's going to be some headlines from that presentation, no doubt. I mean, like, who cares about the annual meeting of any other company, right? You never even hear about this, but Tesla, it's a little bit special. Elon speaking, it's one of the most watched companies in the world. It's one of the like companies where shareholders actually really want to go to the annual meeting. Um, it's going to be here at their new factory in Texas. So uh, everyone's going to be talking about the stock split vote, I'm sure. Um, and that'll be interesting, but probably really the least interesting thing if you listen to the whole presentation. There's also some shareholder proposals that seem somewhat antagonistic. You see this kind of thing where you have activist shareholders where, like for example, Engine Number Nine or something. I may be getting their name wrong. It's like a small hedge fund that came out of nowhere, and they took a little stake in ExxonMobil, put a proposal on the ballot, and they got like a board seat or maybe even a few board seats. I'm a little bit hazy on this story. So, this is something that like investors should really actually be um, you know, there's a process here. We have legal rights. We technically own these companies as shareholders, and we can make proposals that the management has to adopt and do. So some of these proposals are like you know, yeah, something about unionization, like check if we're allowing companies to unionize, like that kind of stuff that's maybe not necessarily good for the company. Um, and the board of directors has advised against it, but these people feel that okay, I'm forcing Tesla to kind of adopt this proposal or whatever. I can maybe force them to make a change that they wouldn't have otherwise. So that'll also be something that I'm looking at closely, how those proposals play out, if any of them are accepted by the shareholders, and whether they're rejected as the board recommends. So a lot of interesting things happening on Thursday.
Nice. Yeah, good question. That was one thing which I was curious about what was on there. Yeah, Evan, what else?
I may be wrong in this. I remember a little bit, maybe it was semi recently. They were kind of talking about like the Tesla master plan or something like that. Were we gonna make another one? Is that coming soon? Is there anything with that, or am I just imagining that at this point? Has that
Yeah,
happened?
no, you're right. So, I mean, Elon loves to set these master plans, which are really like 10-year long plans if you think about it for what the company should do. And the first master plan famously was make a really expensive six-figure car, use the money and success and momentum from that to build a slightly cheaper, more mass market sedan, the Tesla Model S and X, and then use that money to build a more mass market car, the Model 3 and Y. And that's of course taken the whole auto industry by storm and changed everything. So after well, actually right as they kind of started to see the light at the end of the tunnel of Master Plan Part 1, Elon unveiled Master Plan Part 2, which was like, uh, and they weren't, it was like kind of right before the Model 3 launch had started. In many ways, the hardest part of that master plan had yet to be accomplished when he presented the Master Plan Part 2. But they eventually did pull off the end of that Master Plan Part 1 and do a mass market EV. And then the Master Plan Part 2 was build solar roofs and solar panels with battery storage for homes. Um, and basically develop a self-driving capability that's 10 times safer than human, develop a ride-sharing network. So you're starting to kind of, it's by no means done. Their self-driving software is not 10 times better than a human. It hasn't even been fully released to everybody yet. That's the goal for this year. But you're starting to kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel on Master Plan Part 2. And so now it's time for Master Plan Part 3, which is really about, Elon has kind of hinted at scaling to extreme size. Like we're talking massive scale production of the kind you've never seen before in electric vehicles. And also really what they're doing with artificial intelligence and AI, maybe working the Tesla bot into there somehow. So who knows? Maybe they'll present it at the shareholder meeting. Elon did tweet some time ago that he was working on the master plan part 3. So that'd be some pretty big news because, these sort of 10-year plans for Tesla are sort of the guiding star for everyone on the team of what Tesla's really working towards.
Awesome. Anything else on that, Evan?
No, I very much appreciate that. I'm excited. Omar, we need a space live Thursday night? What time is it? Was it 5:30 p.m.? Maybe 6:30? I think it's nice that it's in Texas and not California for me. So I think it's a little earlier, right?
Yeah, we're a little closer on time zones now. So yeah, let's do it. Make a space that night. I'm sure there will be a lot to talk about.
Perfect.
Very nice. Okay, Jonesy, you requested to come up. Do you got a question?
Oh shit. Yeah, I think sorry, what's up guys? I think I was trying to chime in back when we were talking about Elon's kind of bringing everyone back to the office. So a little back in the conversation, but I think I was just going to say is that people tend to forget that it it's much less like a personal preference for him as it is directly related to like the nature of his companies. Like the things he does are not necessarily able to be done remotely at all. And he's so involved in that design process. I kind of think about it like I have a little brother who is an engineer in school, and during the whole COVID shit, the only classes he had that he actually had to go to were his design labs. And so it's like that's kind of a low end comparison, but it really is just directly related to the nature of work. And if people think that's bullshit, I think at the end of the day, like you shouldn't really be at a company that builds cars or rockets or tunnels from LA to PA. You know what I mean? It's just a higher message, and kind of what tunes into what you guys were just talking about with kind of these longer term narratives. And it reminds me, I heard someone talking about how the Twitter play was ultimately like just a data play for an ultimate Neuralink AI. Like the amount of data that you can get from everybody's interactions on Twitter and how people react to certain things could definitely help him in a number of areas. So, but yeah, thanks for having me up, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Any thoughts on that?
Um, no.
Okay, no worries. All right, Maddie7171, you got a question?
Yeah, I do. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yep.
All right. Sorry, I got a 2-month-old laying on me sleeping right now, so I gotta try to keep it quiet here. Um, I got a question. So I'm fairly new. I've been in and out of the market for some years. I am still kicking myself for not buying buying Tesla at all during the pandemic because I was planning on putting in money and then I got laid off for work. Um, I'm just curious, what are some, I know with like the recession and everything going on, or whatever they're calling this now, what are some stocks you guys are looking at now that might be cheaper to buy, but going up right now? Like I'm not going to pay $900 a share right now for for to get into Tesla, but is there anything anybody else is looking at right now, like that's down right now that might be on its way back up maybe after all the dust settles?
Yeah, I don't know if anyone else wants to answer that question, but I mean, it's a good question. I think really, there's a lot of turbulence in the world economy. I mean, COVID was still locking down in China last quarter. You've got, some news today about really tensions between China and Taiwan. Of course, the Russia-Ukraine situation, and you've got monetary policy in the Fed, and no sign that really inflation is moderating, although people seem to have kind of changed their expectations to expect it to kind of flatten out because maybe some of these fuel prices have come down a little bit, but really, like labor and some of the other larger drivers of inflation, they haven't really moved. So, um, I think kind of in some ways, all equities are really correlated right now. Um, and it's kind of a crapshoot, but there's always some great companies out there. I mean, um, not just Tesla, but other companies that are doing interesting things. Um, really look for something, I think, kind of contrarian, where it seems like maybe a bad idea, but there's something more that people aren't seeing. Um, those are really kind of the best investments. I definitely don't think you want to necessarily be chasing some company, Tesla or any other company, because because we have like kind of this bear market rally. I mean, we may not have seen the worst of it for all we know, right? So we're in kind of uncertain times. We don't really know how it's going to last, but you know, we'll see what happens, I guess.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'll kind of leave it at that. Just because I want to continue down the Tesla Elon EV update kind of road. Austin Ferguson, do you have a question? Very insightful. Let's see. Okay, bringing up Mad Trader. Nope. Oh, am I? Maybe. Yes, I am. Okay. I had one other question, which I thought might be a little bit curious. I saw a pretty good review. So I don't know if you follow him on Twitter, Omar, Paul Griffiths. He has a pretty interesting account. You do follow him. And he posted a pretty good thread today, basically recapping his experience driving a Rivian for the last 5 days. And he drove, I don't know how many models they have, but it's basically their Rivian truck. And it's the R1T. And it seems like a pretty good experience to him. I think I saw you posting some pictures with one. They've got that funky looking front. It's like the eyes for headlights. Have you been seeing more of those going around? Because I know that Rivian
Oh
and
yeah.
Lucid, they're just big problems with like getting deliveries done for a long time. That was the biggest problem. Just thoughts on kind of the competition
Mhm.
that's upcoming.
Yeah, so I mean, Rivian is a really great EV player. I think they've got one of the most compelling products on the market. A- and I think you really have a situation where eh, people are really excited because traditionally, because of battery technology, when you saw the first EVs come onto the market, they were these really small, shitty sedans, right? And what do Americans like? They like big, massive SUVs and trucks. That's what people really like. Increasingly, then other people buy them. More people want to buy them, and the fuel emissions regulations are actually more relaxed on these larger SUVs and trucks. So that's another reason why more the automakers like them more too. But EVs had really only been playing in this pretty small part of the market, which is these small sedans. And if you look at the sales of sedans, they just keep going down and down and down. People don't want to buy sedans. If you look at the US market or the North American market, and you look at what are the best selling vehicle models, the top three are trucks. It's the Ford F-150, the Chevy, or the Chevy, Ford F-150, Chevy Silverado, and the Ram. I don't know which order they're in specifically, but those three. Then you go further down the list. What are the next ones? They're all SUVs, which again, EVs have only started to get into fairly recently. So I think you're seeing a ton of excitement around the Rivian R1T, the Ford F-150 Lightning, the Cybertruck, because these are segments that haven't been electrified before. You've never been able to get an electric truck, but now you have multiple options. And granted, production's really low. Rivian obviously is a new company. They're just getting started. Ford doesn't really want to make that many F-150 Lightning. So it's not, electric pickups aren't that plentiful, but you're starting to see the emergence of a market that is going to be fucking huge. Like, we have only been playing for EVs in a tiny slice of the market. Now these companies are starting to go after the big chunk of the market. And guess what? All the benefits of EVs that people liked in sedans, they're even more pronounced when you look at trucks and SUVs. Like, okay, the fuel efficiency of my Tesla compared to, say, a Prius or something, it's better, sure, but a Prius is also pretty good. But when you compare the efficiency of an EV drivetrain to an F-150, oh my God, it's a dramatic difference, right? Because the big trucks and SUVs, they're slow. Well, EVs are fast. The Rivian goes 0 to 60 in 3 seconds on the top end version. Expensive to fuel for those big trucks and SUVs. Well, EVs are a lot cheaper to fuel. So a lot of the things that people loved EVs are even more pronounced in trucks and SUVs. Um, and I think, I mean, I don't really know when Rivian is going to hit profitability, if ever. They have 17 billion in cash though, so that's a significant cash cushion, but even still they've been reducing their expenses, reducing their workforce because ramping up production is just extremely challenging. I mean, they're really losing $1 million on some of these first units that they're selling, right? And eh, they had the whole kind of pricing thing. They tried to raise pricing. So I don't really know how they'll do financially, but one thing I can tell you for sure is that EV trucks are going to be hot. Like all the people who've reviewed them, they're just glowing and they're like, wow, you know what? This is better than any truck I've ever owned. Not better than any other electric truck, not better than any other electric vehicle. This is the best truck I've ever used for a number of reasons. And I think people are just so underestimating the growth of EVs as we really start to attack all the major segments, as we start to attack a situation where you have electric semis, electric pickup trucks, electric SUVs. And with this new EV tax credit coming down the line, potentially $7,500 off a Cybertruck or an F-150 for the next 10 years, $40,000 off an electric semi truck. I don't think people are prepared for the avalanche of demand that's coming and sort of the house of cards that the whole fossil fuel car industry is built on, and how quickly that could come collapsing down if just a few of the most valuable customers decide they want to go electric.
Very, very spooky and passionate and good. I like it. You're really good at delivering those messages. All right, Mad Trader, what's up?
Hey, now I just wanted to add a couple points to what he was just talking about. I'm out in Newport Beach, so I see a lot of Rivians. I don't know, they have I believe their corporate office is in Irvine.
Yeah, that's right.
But one of the things that I had been just posting on Twitter randomly is I really think if Tesla wants a viable number two, it would be if potentially if Rivian and Lucid joined forces in some, doesn't necessarily have to be a full-on merger, but if they partnered up somehow, that could be a viable number two to Tesla for anyone who's looking for other investments, aside from Tesla, which I love as well. But it seems like they have two of the best products in the sedan side and the pickup side. And then really just to add to his comment on the trucks and the demand that would open up for larger SUVs, if somehow either Tesla or somebody else tackled the luxury market again with a high priced, like I'm talking like a full size, like an Escalade Navigator type vehicle that could store a ton of luggage with, somehow they sandwiched the battery packs and, made them a little bigger to increase density and power delivery and all that. But it seems like the form factor would be ideal for a larger battery, just having a huge, vehicle. And I'm telling you, soccer moms would eat that up. That thing would be flying off the shelves faster than a Cybertruck probably. So that's another potential thing if Tesla decided to finally go after the Escalade market, which is pretty big, and not to mention the number of limousine companies and luxury companies that would buy these vehicles to have them for their clients. So we're talking it's millions and millions and millions. And then one other comment I wanted to add to, somebody asked earlier about a stock that's, something other than Tesla. I've been following Rocket Lab and not a lot of people talk about it, but, I don't see any red flags on the company, and really there's SpaceX. And then you have some more established players that do satellite launches, but really Rocket Lab seems to be seems like a very good potential investment for somebody that's looking for a small player that's growing. They're about to launch an update on their, pun intended, on their Neutron design, I guess their Neutron rocket, which is the next big thing that they're doing. And they already landed quite a few contracts. So I don't know if anyone else wants to comment on Rocket Lab, but we do have a position in that. And I also have it in my personal portfolio, so full disclosure. But I like the company and I like the leadership of the company. It's good potential there.
Yeah, so I mean that's an interesting idea about Lucid and Rivian merging. I haven't heard that. I think definitely in this economic downturn, you're going to see a lot of consolidation, a lot of mergers, a lot of legacy players maybe buying startups that are running out of cash, maybe some successful startups even buying legacy players that are dying. There's going to be a lot of consolidations and mergers, and it's going to be pretty interesting. I mean, Lucid is owned majority by the Saudi Arabia PIF, and I haven't been seeing as many of them as I've been seeing Rivians. It's fairly common to see a Rivian. Lucid Air, a little bit more rare. Um, I'm not sure necessarily it would be a good idea to combine those two cash burning companies at this stage, but I mean, who knows? Maybe, down the line. And yeah, Rocket Lab's an interesting company. I mean, obviously there's a lot of risks. I think one of their rockets kind of failed and lost the payload recently, but it's kind of a classic case of this emerging market. I mean, emerging market isn't the right term, like a nascent market, right? Because right now, what is the space industry? If you're in the business of launching things into space, it's really you've got a small number of government and commercial customers who are willing to spend, $1 million plus to launch something into space, right? It's not something the average consumer really, is going to interface with. But if you have a thesis, kind of a long shot thesis that, okay, well, what if in a couple decades there's a base on the moon and people go to the moon to visit because it's actually gotten cheaper. You've got Starship and things like that. And people are actually, living on the moon maybe or working on the moon. They've got an amusement park like Futurama maybe, or even going to Mars long term, then yeah, a company like Rocket Lab would turn out to be massively more valuable than it's trading at right now because the market would be much bigger. But of course, you don't know when exactly that's going to happen or what the timeline is going to be, but I think we kind of know generally that in the future, hopefully people will travel space more. So it is kind of one of the few publicly traded companies that's interesting in that space and a better buy, I think, than Virgin Galactic, which is really kind of running a plane and doing sort of like a zero gravity simulation. Rocket Lab's definitely more of the real deal.
Sweet. Hopefully that answered the question there, Mad Trader. All right, Troutster, you've been up here. Did you have a question?